you haven't had the chance to put in your rating yet, please do so while I introduce our next speaker. Our next speaker up on stage is Dr. Corrie Block. Dr. Corrie is the UAE's top business coach. He's been also voted the top 20 life coaches worldwide. And Dr. Corrie is going to be talking to us about evolutionary psychology and the metaverse. Now, I can guarantee you, you have never, ever heard a presentation that combines psychology and the metaverse in one. So, very exciting stuff. Dr. Corrie, the stage is yours. You've got 30 minutes. While watching this presentation, remember the rating system. Here we go.
Thank you so much.
Put your hands together for Dr. Corrie.
Hi, everyone. Look, first of all, I'm really excited to be here, and I'm expecting straight 4s on my Menti, okay? Because I'm not supposed to be here at all. I don't know if you've seen this, but the UAE's top business coach, first of all, I have no idea how you would even judge that. That's ridiculous. Secondly, that should be your first red flag to the fact that I'm not supposed to be on this stage. I'm entirely in the wrong room with all of you CIOs. I am not a CIO. Okay, don't get me wrong. I've led some digital transformation projects. I did the AI strategy at DIWA. I did the first B2B e-com platform in the UAE for Blue Ryan Group, and I've done the RPA delay cost calculations for Serco. So I've been in the digital space, but I am not a technologist. I'm not a coder. I'm not an engineer. I don't understand any of that. I'm a behaviorist. I understand humans. And this is not the first time that Tushar has made the mistake of putting me on this stage. No, he did this last year too. I was at the Roadshow in Dubai where I shared about the 12 reasons your digital transformation will fail. And that turned into an amazing article on Forbes, and that got a lot of really great reviews, so I'm happy about that. But again, I'm coming at all of this as an organizational behaviorist and as a business coach, not from the technical side. So you're going to forgive me for wasting the next 27 minutes of your life. I'm going to try my best to be entertaining, but when I get my 4s on Menti, I'm not going to be surprised in the least. Are you ready? I want to talk about evolutionary psychology and the metaverse. I don't want to talk about the metaverse so much because I know that you all understand what that is. I don't need to define that. But in order for us to understand how that creation of universes that have never existed before is going to influence the way that we think as humans, and to understand how the way that we think as humans influences the creation of those universes that have never existed before, we need to introduce you all as CIOs to the concept of evolutionary psychology. So I want to start there. When we contrast the evolution of technology and humanity, there are some significant gaps in the way that these two ideas have developed over time. Technology has evolved incredibly rapidly, very fast, following Moore's law for the last 300 years, since the Industrial Revolution to artificial intelligence now. It's been an incredible roller coaster ride. But the contrast to that is that we as humans have developed incredibly slowly over a period of close to 1 million years. 600,000 years since Homo sapiens first walked the planet, 10,000 years since our first civilizations that we know of. Like, it's been a very long period of time. And so we have this incredible challenge. And the challenge is that we have an adaptivity gap between the way that our technology is transformed and the way that we have transformed. We have transformed very slowly, incrementally, over a long period of time, while technology around us, the technology we've created, has exploded exponentially. Technology has evolved in a utility-based system, whereas we have evolved in a survival-based system. And I'm going to explain why that's important in about 4 minutes from now. Technology has taken huge leaps, while we as humans have advanced with very tiny mutations over a period of eons compared to the decades and disruptions of our technology that we've created around us. So it's important for us to recognize and appreciate that there is an adaptability gap between the way that we have evolved physically and mentally and the way that our technology has evolved around us. Now, I want to highlight how that adaptability gap is really produced for us, right? We evolve very slowly over a long period of time. Our technology evolves very rapidly around us, and that creates some challenges. And those challenges have to be navigated by what we call our adaptive mechanisms. Adaptive mechanisms in humans occur in two ways: physical and psychological. Now, a physical adaptive mechanism is things like the calluses on our hands when we work too hard, right? Your skin becomes tougher. Yeah? When you're moving your mouse around all day, your skin gets tougher. So when you have hard work, your skin gets thicker, right? That's an adaptive mechanism. You don't think about it. You don't want your skin to get thicker. It just does. That's because of the last 500,000 years of evolution. Same thing is in the sun. I'm pretty white. I'm a pretty white guy, right? So when I go out in the sun, my skin starts to get darker, sometimes actually just lobster red. And that's an adaptive mechanism. I don't think about it. I don't say, hey, I need my skin to turn a different color like a chameleon. I don't have that ability. It's just an adaptive mechanism. It automatically happens. And we have those same mechanisms as we do physiologically, we have them psychologically as well. And let me give you a couple of examples, because we have adaptive mechanisms that we don't need anymore. Like a fear of snakes. We're all afraid of snakes, at least enough to respect one if someone's slithering across the ground, right? We see there's a snake on the ground, we respect that. Now, snakes don't kill very many of us every year, but you know what does? Cigarettes. But we don't have a healthy fear or phobia of cigarettes. We don't see a packet of cigarettes on the table and go, ah, right? Cigarettes. We created that. We invented it. It's brand new. It's part of technology. It kills a lot of us, but we don't have a healthy fear of it because we don't have an adaptive mechanism psychologically to respect the threat that it provides. Same thing with heights. We have a healthy fear of heights, which kill about 600,000 humans every year, but none of us is afraid of fast food. And fast food kills about 12 million humans every year. But we don't go to a bucket of fried chicken and jump back in fear and say, ah, fried chicken. Right? We should, because that actually poses a threat to us. But the problem is that our technology has developed so quickly that we don't respect the threats that we've created. And we do respect threats that are no longer an issue, like spiders. Spiders don't kill hardly any humans every year, but you know what does kill a lot of humans? Cars. But we don't have a healthy phobia of cars. We don't jump into the parking lot saying, oh my God, I'm surrounded by cars. Right? There's none of that healthy respect or fear that we should have. This is just to highlight the reality that we have not evolved adaptive mechanisms to help us survive in the world that we have created for ourselves. And that's where the challenge comes in. We haven't evolved them, these adaptive mechanisms that we need. And this plays very, very heavily into how we will adapt to the metaverse. As we're talking about work from anywhere, from Dell's perspective, or work from home, maybe from your company's perspective, your people will be spending more and more time in digital environments, and we need to understand not just how to create the digital environments, but how those digital environments will affect the way that our people think, act, and behave. And no, I'm not proposing metaversophobia. I'm not a metaversophobist. I don't know if that's a word. Perhaps I've just made that up. But no, I don't think so. I just think we have to have a healthy respect for the interplay between man and machine. And there will be play between man and machine. We're already using virtual reality to cure things like phobias, heights, claustrophobia, spiders. You can interact with all of these things in safe digital environments that, through exposure therapy, allows you to experience them in a way that doesn't harm you. Same with public speaking. You know that public speaking, being on this stage, is the #1 fear among humans. More than spiders, snakes, the dark, heights, people are afraid of public speaking. Why? Because it used to be a very dangerous thing to do. Standing on a stage in front of 200 apex predators used to be a very dangerous thing, and people who stood on stages tended to die at a very young age. Well, that's an adaptive mechanism. The fear of being on stage is because it used to be something that led to death. It doesn't anymore, so it's no longer appropriate. We don't need that fear anymore, so we can help ourselves through that in our digital environments. But we need to understand, if we're going to create environments in which we can exist digitally, how our adaptive mechanisms will play on our experience of the worlds that we create. In evolutionary psychology, we talk about 4 major arenas of adaptive mechanisms. They're in the area of survival and growth. That is what keeps me alive, right? As the human species, we need to survive the planet. If we don't survive, the species is done. End of game. Okay? We have to mate. We have to create more humans. If we don't create another layer of humans, we age out, and then that's it. Species done. End of game. Okay? Those humans have to survive. So we need to be able to parent. We have to raise our tiny humans until they're old enough to create tiny humans of their own. That's the 3rd major adaptive mechanism. And the 4th one is how to take care of the people that are like us around us, because nobody survives the planet alone. The planet is a very dangerous place to live, and we all need each other in order to survive. So let's go through these 4 really quickly, and I want to ask the questions. See, this is the problem, I think, with a presentation like this. I don't have great answers for you. I've just got really good questions. Like when we talk about survival, the #1 concern of survival is food, access to food. And we don't have that challenge now because we have Talabat and Deliveroo, and here in Thailand we have Grab. And we have access to great food, but our brains are programmed to seek out concentrated sources of sugar, fat, and salt. Mine is the Big Mac. That's my drug of choice, is the Big Mac. Any Big Mac fans here? I can't wait until I'm living in a digital environment where I'm wandering around in my own metaverse looking like George Clooney, and a Big Mac floats by me, and I don't even have to order it. I just reach out and go, bing, and then 10 minutes later it arrives at my door. But how will our food choices be informed by the living, or the more and more of us living and existing in these digital environments? How will we break bread together, which has become a cornerstone of most of our cultures around the world, is the ability to eat together around a dinner table, around dinner, around lunch. We're going to have lunch together today. We're going to have dinner together. We had dinner together last night. How are those things going to be informed by the fact that more and more of us will be existing in digital environments for more and more of our human lives? And trees. Trees bother me in the metaverse because they don't serve a purpose. Why do we create them? They don't pull in carbon dioxide and release oxygen out because there's nothing there. There's no tree there. There's no soil there. So in the metaverse, in a digital environment, why do we create trees? Because we have a psychological mechanism that associates trees with water sources and shade and shelter and fruit. We've been programmed to think of trees as something that provides something. And so we'll be in a digital environment convincing ourselves that these digital trees are providing something when they're actually not. And how will our view of the real trees and the real planet, which we really actually need to survive, how will our view of those things change when we spend more and more of our time in a digital environment lush with trees that we can't tell aren't even real? Will we stop being concerned, or will we become less concerned about the environment around us physically? I don't know. What about fears? What about violence? What happens to our definition of violence when my avatar slaps your avatar? Is it violent? I don't know. What happens to our definition of personal space when we can't contract diseases because we're living in a metaverse? Is there going to be personal space? Can my avatar stand this close to your avatar? Would that still be weird? I don't know. What happens to our mating preferences? Okay, so this is the part where it's going to get a little bit weird for you. Bear with me. Remember, I'm a behaviorist, right? I'm studying the humans here. We know that female humans tend to prefer taller, more resourceful men. We know that because of the last 500,000 years of human evolution. That is just the way that it is, right? So what happens in a universe where I can appear taller and more resourceful and maybe a little bit thinner? Maybe I could just lose a little bit of this. What do you think? You know? And if all of us are going around looking a little bit thinner, a little stronger, and a little taller, well, is that a good thing? I don't know. Maybe it is. I think it's a good thing that I'm going to be able to rent George Clooney's skin. Wouldn't that be amazing? For $35 a day, I can walk around actually looking like George Clooney. Would you be more likely to talk to me if I looked like him? Maybe. Or maybe I have a really creative day and I decide to go around looking like Selena Gomez. Would you be more likely to talk to me then? If I could wear Selena Gomez's skin and speak in her voice, would you be more likely to talk to me and make a deal with me and do business with me? Actually, statistically, scientifically, yes, you would. Is that a good thing? I don't know. But as soon as I can rent Selena Gomez's skin to come and negotiate my next contract with you, I will do it just to see what happens. What about our cooperative alliances? We're programmed as humans to remember the faces of other humans we've seen and to remember the quality and quantity of interactions we've had with them. So if you meet someone on the street that you hated 10 years ago, as soon as you meet them on the street, you will hate them now. We're programmed for that. Okay, so what happens in a world where you can change faces as much as you want? I can appear like whoever I want. You have no hope of ever remembering the number or quality of interactions you and I have had, because if I've had a bad interaction with you in the past, I can simply look like someone else and start again. Is that a good thing? I don't know. I just know that it's real. I know that it's happening right now. I know that it's possible right now. I know that right now it's possible for me in the metaverse as Dr. Corrie Block to negotiate 1,000 successful contracts with 1,000 companies, but I know it's not possible for me to fulfill them unless I rent my skin out to 1,000 subcontractors so that they can appear in your companies looking like me. They can execute on the contracts on my behalf, and I'll share the profits with them. I can fulfill 1,000 contracts all at the same time, and all of my customers will think that it's me sitting in the boardroom with them. As long as I've trained my subcontractors well, there's no need for them to know that I'm not there. Is that a good thing? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not. But here's what we already know. We already know that overuse of digital technology leads to significant mental health issues. And these are statistical facts today, okay? Somatic symptoms, depression, psychotism, paranoid ideation, and sometimes serious mental illness can result of all of this. I see you taking pictures. Listen, connect with me on LinkedIn, okay? Because LinkedIn is my primary channel. DM me and ask me for these slides, and I will send them to you. I will give you these slides. I want you to think about these things. Because I'm pretty sure, well, look, let's face it, we haven't talked about evolutionary psychology in the metaverse before, right? I looked around for a book on the subject and I couldn't find it. I wrote this because I really wanted the answers. And what I came up with was not answers, but questions, really good questions. And I don't have the answers for them, but I'm thinking this might be a hint in one direction that we need to pay attention to, and the other one comes from Stanford University, from the director of the Virtual Human Interaction Lab. He says there's less ability to create an accurate version of oneself in the metaverse than there is on social media platforms, and where the skew is toward better-looking, idealized avatars. The challenge is going to be when people are spending a lot of time there, and they're in a world in which everyone is just perfect and beautiful and ideal. How does that downstream affect one's own self-esteem? Well, no one knows the answer to that. As we spend more time in remote work, more time in work from anywhere, more time as, well, let's call it work as anyone. When we spend more time in work as anyone, what will be the effect on who we are as humans? And who's to say that that metaverse that we've created, those universes that we want to live and work in, who's to say that that's not the real world if I'm spending the majority of my conscious time there? If my life is a combination of all of the experiences I gain between birth and death, and I'm spending fully half or more of those experiences at work, that's my life. And if that work happens in a metaverse, well, that's the real world, isn't it? Who's to say, if that's the majority of my human experience, that that's not the more real world than this one? Who decides what's real and what's not real now? I do. You do. What we already know is that there's a cooperative relationship between physical and mental health. When your mental health goes down, your physical health goes down too. And when your physical health goes up, your mental health goes up too. So what happens when we're living in worlds where we feel like we've done a lot, but our bodies have been sedentary the entire time? Well, we don't know. We don't have longevity studies on that yet. We just know that it's a really good question. What happens to the political polarization of the planet? When you can walk out into your metaverse neighborhood and every advertisement you see is exactly the one that you want to see. And so you think that everyone in your metaverse neighborhood thinks exactly like you, and yet everyone walking around you is looking at a totally different set of advertisements. And none of the ads challenge your thought, challenge your thinking. None of them challenge you to think or believe any differently. What happens in a world like that? Or in a world where you walk up to some stranger on a metaverse street and you engage in an incredible conversation about religion or politics or economics, only to realize 30 minutes later that it is an artificial intelligence that's designed to convince you to change your vote or to change the product or service that you're going to purchase. What happens in a world like that? When everything around you is designed to interact with you in a way that's specific to you? Well, we don't know, but we're doing it. There's a couple of good applications. This might be good, might not be good, but we're already erasing bias by randomizing the way that people appear for hiring interviews. Is that going to be good for you? Maybe. Maybe not. We are helping former military personnel and people with PTSD to deal with their mental health issues through virtual reality and in metaverse situations. We are already helping people. So that's great. So there's some really great applications of this. We're dealing with fears and phobias, and we are a work from anywhere culture that's just emerging now. But is all of it going to be good? I don't know. I just know we should be careful. So like I said, I don't have answers for you. I don't have the solution. I have great questions, but I do have some guiding principles that I'd like you to pay attention to. One, remember how old we are. Just in case you've forgotten, you are an apex predator, and you are the latest iteration in 10,000 successful generations of an improving design. Whatever the world throws at you, you've got this, okay? First of all, so be proud of yourself for just being born. That was amazing. Okay, all of the ones that didn't survive the planet, they're not here. Their kids didn't make it. All we have now are successful humans. Humans that survived the last 10,000 generations of war and famine and flood and disease. That's you. Remember how old you are. Remember the processes that have gone into making you amazing and helping you and your ancestors to survive. Secondly, experiment without preconditions or preconceptions. Recognize that these metaverses that we're creating, brand new and fun as they are, is like a psychological version of a nuclear technology. Okay? We're at the beginning of this, and we don't yet know what the long-term effects of alternative universes will be on the human consciousness. We don't. So respect it like you would in nuclear technology, and monitor what's happening with human behavior as people spend more and more time in these digital worlds. And lastly, ethical design. No, it does not go without saying, define it and defend it for you and for your people. Thank you so much for having me this morning. It's been really, really amazing to be able to share some cool ideas with you. I've enjoyed that. I do have a few minutes for Q&A if any of you have any questions, but before I do Q&A, I got to take a selfie, because how often am I going to be in a room with like the 200 top CIOs in the world? This only happens once. Yeah. Thanks. All right, any questions? Anything you want to talk about? Cool ideas you've got from this? I do too, man. I spent the last 6 months thinking about this. I'm like, yeah, I don't have a really good solution for that. What's your name? Mohammed? Allah yaftah alaik. Great question. Yeah, please.
So it's a fantastic content and presentation on Metaverse.
Thank you.
Psychological part. So I connected with you, and hopefully we'll share that presentation right now. Here's the question. Coming from an education industry, Metaverse has a big push in terms of how does it affect learning, teaching and learning. What's your view on that? How does the education, like the new generation, getting into the world of Metaverse?
I think the challenge isn't the quality of the information that's being passed, but quality of the relationships that are being built while the information is being passed. Right? We know that classroom learning is better for a student in terms of learning outcomes than digital learning. Okay? That much we know. If you put them into a digital learning environment where there's a simulated classroom, I haven't read science on that, and I don't make it up. My challenge is, or my concern is, that they're not going to be able to build relationships with each other in class informally the way that they would in a physical environment. Remember, we've got 500,000 years of building trust through eye contact, right? We make eye contact, we learn we can trust you. I can trust you, you're an apex predator, but I know you're not going to hurt me because we're making eye contact and smiling, and when I'm going to extend my weapon hand towards you to show you that I'm not a threat, okay? We've got like 500,000 years of that. We got 15 years of online learning environments, and they're not going to be able to make eye contact with each other in the same way that we do in a physical environment. I think when we get over that, and we're able to make tactile contact, like a handshake, and eye contact, or at least simulated eye contact to the place where our brain starts producing oxytocin in the same way that we do when we're physically together, that's when it'll change, and maybe we'll have the same quality of learning in that environment. Yes?
Is there enough study for the newer generation who's getting into Roblox, Second Life? Those are Fortnite.
Yep.
You know, these are avatar-based gaming, which are engaged with the younger generation, like the kids. In the future, you know, they build a world there.
Yep.
They talk to strangers, they interact. If you put the classroom environment, because it hasn't changed for 100, 1,000 years maybe.
That's right.
That you sit down in the classroom like what we're doing right now here. We're engaging, we're having eye-to-eye contact, we're physically present. There, on the newer generation, the mindset is they're present in that virtual world.
Yes.
But there's not enough study that says, you know, that
there is now, and that's where the statistics that I gave you from Psychology Today come from. Is usually from younger generations. Younger generations suffer from greater mental illness than older generations, and it is largely because of the amount of time that they spend in digital interaction. Again, the technology might develop to the place where we can't tell the difference between physical and digital interaction, in which case, neurochemically, the experience will be the same. In the meantime, my son is 21 years old, right? He was raised in a digital environment. And when he's at the end of his, like he's much better at interpreting emotion through text than I am, but he's not as good in a physical environment as I am, because he was raised probably with 50% of his interactions being online. So he's much more astute at the online interpretation, but much less astute at one-to-one contact or physical interaction like this. So we do have some longevity studies from those who were born in the millennial generation and about how they're doing socially now. And that's where a good deal of those mental illness statistics come from, is from long periods of interaction and soaking in digital environments. Yeah, it's a challenge now. And we need to pay attention to this, because these are real humans, okay? This isn't theoretical, it's not a book you're reading, it's not an article. These are real humans that are really being challenged by this. And some of those humans will be in your companies as they start to work from home or work from anywhere. Yes?
Yeah, thank you for an awesome presentation. I love the intersection that you created. But
so you're going to give me all fours then on my mentee, yeah?
A little bit better, I think. But, you know, and you kind of started to hit on this with that last question the gentleman asked. And there's applicability in many different industries in the space that you talked about. But my question for you is, beyond the one you started to scratch the surface on, what are you most concerned about with this space? I'm mostly concerned that the quality of life in the metaverse will be higher experientially than the quality of life in the physical world, and people will prefer to live in the digital world, because why would you come back? So what, if that's the case, what is it we could do, if that's such a concern, to slow that down, prevent it, and not create that continued trajectory of very slow growth that you started to speak about in the beginning? Yeah,
I think the great thinkers on this, people like at Amazon and Google, the mixed physical and digital work environment, the flex from anywhere, right? You have to be physically in the office 2 days a week, something like that. A balance between remote work and physical work is going to help a lot, because we've got 500,000 years of being tribe, right? Being with each other as we try to conquer the planet and provide resources for each other. And we've got 30 years of email and digitally communicating with each other. So I think having some sort of blend where it forces us to be in a room like this, you know that this is not going to be the same in a metaverse environment. Am I right? It's not going to be the same. I'm not going to be able to make eye contact with you the same. You're not going to be able to see my hand gestures or my facial expression in the same way. Maybe in the future we'll have technology that compensates for that, but in the meantime, a balance really has to be struck between physical interaction and digital interaction. The more we interact physically, the more we establish that foundation of trust between one human and the next, and the more that foundation of trust is there, the more efficient communication is when it's digital. I think I'm being shunned off the stage, right? You're calling me, so I'm going to have to end this here. Thank you so much for all of your questions. I have 20 and only 20 copies of my latest book called Business is Personal. It has nothing to do with technology. It has everything to do with meaning at work. And the first 20 of you during the break that are out there and ask me for one, I'm happy to answer your questions, and I'm happy to give you a signed copy of Business is Personal. Thank you for sharing a little bit of your life with me.
Thank you. Awesome. So I learned many things, but one thing that's